Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to what may be the best-sounding episode of the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, and the current poobah of Frasier. Big round of applause for Sejan Sarowick.
Yeah.
Sejan.
That's really kind of yourself there. You know, I don't. As the guy that usually edits our stuff, I don't know how you feel about your own work.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna. All right, so let's start. This is not really a time capsule. It's not really a very special episode, but it is us locking in time an actual studio recorded episode of the Say Report, so that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's a very special episode because for the first time in 354 proper episodes of the show, Siege and I are recording in the same room.
Yeah, I mean... There's maybe one or two like weird special episodes that are...
We have never recorded in the same space for the Say Report, not even for very special stuff.
Oh no, the Lost episode is what I'm thinking.
The Lost episode wasn't even an episode of the Say Report. I think that would have been a two friends on the couch at the end of the day. Or
yeah. I don't know what we would have released it as if we could have released it.
Yeah, exactly. If I hadn't drank a pint of gin and saw the face of God, yeah. The Gincident. Is the Gincident the last time we recorded live, or did we end up doing maybe Three Friends in a Movie?
We did a Three Friends in a Movie, but I don't remember if that was afterwards or not.
Yeah, I think
I came in for a Christmas, cousin Eddie's Christmas, right?
Yes, yes, because if it's out there, if you still want to look for it, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2, Eddie's Island Christmas. It's something that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of what's still going on with SAG-AFTRA, it looks like they're negotiating and they might be close to a deal. We are still going to be avoiding, film and TV as it is technically struck work. So I think the best place to start right now of everything is let's just get that task out of the way, right? Sejan said this was going to be a special episode, and I thought that meant we were going to have to throw up a time capsule for you. I did not anticipate actually recording in the same room as him.
Yeah. Well, it was really important that I come here so that we could talk about one really... I don't know how we have not noticed this before. I don't know why we allowed this to happen. But did you know that you can get Wendy's chili in a can at the grocery store now?
No. What? I thought we were going to talk about the Buoys Timothy, but let's talk about...
We got to talk about this. First of all, it is entirely counter to the point of Wendy's chili.
Right. I want hot chili.
Well, yeah. But also on top of that, you know how they make Wendy's chili. Everybody, right? It's the way it's the burgers throughout the day. When they don't sell after a certain time, they just chop them up and dump them in the chili. Yeah. What is in that can? Is it just sauce? I mean, without having a can in front of me, you are very unprepared for this. We're in person. You could have a prop. I was going to pull out a can of it. Look, I was going to buy a can of it, right? But it also is in like the most indistinct white label can. Like there is a picture of the titular Wendy on it, right? But beyond that,
Dave Thomas's daughter. Let's give credit where credit's due. It's Dave Thomas's daughter is Wendy.
We're all Dave Thomas's children.
Yeah, but we're not supposed to talk about it. He went back in time and ejacked in the primordial ooze.
But
old-fashioned hamburgers indeed.
I am almost convinced that if you turn the can around, there won't even be nutrition facts on it. It's just a white can of Wendy's
fantastic.
chili.
It's still an audio program, but we could have a can in the studio, and we could have done that. My guess is that it is. Walmart and Target and all of them have their store brand chili.
Right.
And honestly, I feel like it's just Hormel with a different label on it.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to imagine that it's just Hormel chili in there. That it's not actually Wendy's chili. What I want to do, first of all, I hate Wendy's chili. As a person who has made chili for most of my life, store-bought chili is just a disgrace to me. And the fact that chili seems to have beans in it no matter what you're going to do. And
you mean store-bought?
Yeah, store-bought. Yeah. Well, sometimes you can find it without beans, but invariably, if you go to a restaurant, there will be beans in it. If you buy a can of it at the store, there will be beans in it. Wendy's chili has beans in it.
That's true.
So I'm not ordering it ever because when I make my own chili, it is just ground beef and the seasonings and the way that I have been trained to make chili my whole life.
Well, chili is just one of those things, like, and you get this in the food world all the time, but this is one of those like prime examples of like there is like a cult of chili.
Yes.
And if you do not make chili the way that they say you should make chili, then you're not making chili, right? And I think like the Texas Red is like
Texas Red is pretty much the big one everywhere.
Right.
And Texans they'd rip your tongue out if you've served them bean chili.
Right. Probably throw it in the chili.
Oh yeah, of course. Their own chili when they get back. It's like the Wendy's chili, except it's just tongues of people who've offended me by serving me chili with beans in it. So I'm not gonna try it anyway, right? Like it's like but you presenting this to me as a thing that exists.
Yes. Yeah.
All I want to do is do a taste test and compare
eat some Wendy's
chili from a Wendy's to the chilies in a can, like branded as Wendy's.
Yeah, I think Zach used to be the chili guy. I think when he worked at Wendy's.
Well, I mean, whenever I hear about Wendy's chili, the first thing I think is that old urban legend that like the guy took a shit in the Wendy's chili,
right?
And it's just like I would never have it anyway, right? Just like I will never get lettuce at a Wendy's. Because one of the Daly brothers, when he worked there, he chopped off the top of his finger while cutting up lettuce.
Oh, good God.
And before he could go bandage it, they made him finish chopping the lettuce. So the fact that I've even eaten at a Wendy's again after knowing that story is kind of impressive. But, like, I certainly will never get lettuce on my junior bacon cheeseburger.
Is it Dave Thomas? No, I'm thinking of Colonel Sanders, where he sold the business eventually, and then it went downhill, and he got so mad that he opened up another chicken place. Yeah. No, but man, yeah. But I saw Wendy's chili on the shelf at a grocery store, and did a double take, and then clearly didn't want to go anywhere near it.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, you made the right decision. I think if you had introduced a can of Wendy's chili into this environment, I may have thrown it at you. Right? And Zach, we've already dropped his name once, he will attest that I will throw something at someone when they have offended me. So, yeah.
Hey, this is really weird seeing your face. I'm sorry. Being able to actually see you react to me talking about things is not, I am usually at this point so deep into just zoning out into looking at a black Discord screen or something.
Yeah, right? Clyde's not here for this recording, and that's very strange.
Oh, no.
That means that he won't yell at me when I go into, editing the episode and forget to hang up on you. And then I get the bimp, and it's like, no one's talked in this Discord channel for 5 minutes. We have a finite amount of space on our server.
Yeah. Discord is like, please hang up the phone.
Yeah, what are you in it? What are you? So, but no. So thank you for that and derailing it. But let's get the task out of the way. Okay. And then we can just talk about whatever we want, right? Okay. So Sejan, when he didn't give me a task, I thought that you guys would be hearing our time capsule episode. Probably would have been Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, which I'm very excited for when that does eventually get to drop and you all get to hear us.
We don't often tease what's buried in the vault. But...
Well, the beautiful thing about that is if the strike comes up, I think we'd put the other episode out first, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So who knows, right? You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. But but because I wasn't 100% sure, and because this has been something that's rattling around in my mind, because this song, it came up on Spotify for me. That's not the reason why I liked it. But apparently, my taste in music directed me to Timothy by the Buoys.
Okay.
Now, this is a song that I have known since 2014. I was working at DHS, Department of Human Services, the welfare office, basically. And we had on Sirius Radio, and I don't know how much you listen to Sirius Radio, Sirius XM, but occasionally they'll have call-ins.
Oh.
Which is
okay.
Weird, right?
Where are you calling into? Isn't the whole point of satellite radio is that it's the same radio all over the world?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, probably it's pre-recorded, right? Like they have a time where you can call in, and then they have a call-in session, because it's basically just like old syndicated radio from the 90s. Okay. Well, I mean, it still goes on today, but Sirius XM is just we do our programs and we can build them however we want, right? We can have someone, we're having a call-in hour now, and they have someone there to take the calls, and then they'll play them.
Do they still have like a whole like Howard Stern channel? Wasn't that was like their big?
That was their big
yeah.
thing, is that they had Stern. I want to say yes, but it's not like I was ever listening to Stern on there. So.
But at some point he had a channel for them, so it was just he was doing his live thing in the morning, but then for the rest of the day they would just play old episodes of Howard Stern, which there were straight up television stations that would do that too after a certain point of night. So
remember the Howard Stern broadcast over the air television stuff? That was incredible. That was just crazy things.
I mean, I was actually we can't talk about the movie, man.
Yeah,
but anyway,
yes.
But I was actually just in that whole world like last week.
I don't doubt that, especially considering some of the films I've watched that we still can't talk about. The list ever grows, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to know we're going to have that recap episode on everything we've done that we have not been able to talk about for the past, well, I guess it's 108 days now is the time that we're recording. So it's just nuts. I can't believe that, and everything that's happened with it, right? We're never going to talk about this fucking song.
Well, okay, no, let's go back to the song, because I like the craziest part of the story so far is that you were working in DHS, and this is the song that is playing, and this is an office that people come to, right?
Right. I will say it was after hours. I was working overtime. But it's still the same Sirius station that's on all day, right? I don't get to choose what we listen to.
Yeah.
And the guy comes on and he's like, it's this one song that's really creepy to me. And it's about cannibalism, and it's called Timothy. I remember hearing it when it was new. I've never heard it again. Can you guys play that song for me? And Sirius went, yeah, sure, we'll play that song for you, right? So they play Timothy by the Buoys. Now, here's what I'm going to say, right? We do this all the time. Stop the podcast and find Timothy by the Buoys, Buoys, and listen to that song before you hear us talk about it.
Honestly, what we should do is we should add it to the Halloween playlist.
I would have no problem adding it to
fits. Yeah. So if you saved our Halloween Spotify playlist that we put together, this will now be added to it after sometime this weekend. Yeah.
3 spooky songs, 3. We'll make sure it's added to that. It's good. Look at that. Conjoining and synergy. Look at that.
We work much better when we're in the same.
I know, right? The energy. Well, someone has to live in Utah for his job. I don't. No. But yeah, so it's one of those situations where listen to the song and then come back to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to keep talking because hopefully they paused it and listened to the song. So that song is clearly about cannibalism, right?
I mean, yeah, there's straight up a part where he's like, pass me another or something, or he hand, it is not subtle.
It's not subtle that it's about cannibalism at all. And the story behind the song is that they were trying to promote their band, but the label wouldn't help them. So they tried to write a song that sounded very controversial so that people would remember it. And also, it's a bit of a banger, right? I don't know, I don't know where you feel about it.
Well, it's on the one hand, it has that it has a very edgelord kind of feel to it because of the fact that it is so obviously ooh, we're doing this really creepy thing, right? But when you say that it's kind of a banger, it's because the quality and the genre and the style of the whole thing is, I mean, it's funky. It's got a good hook to it. I couldn't stop thinking of Matt Berry the whole time. If you've ever listened to any of Matt Berry's music,
that's actually a really good analog there.
It really, really kind of so it has a lot of I'm trying to think of the right word. It's really learned. The music is built really well.
It's classical. You can tell that the people who are doing it are probably classically trained and they understand musicality. If not musicality, then at least music theory.
Right. And then like you said, they just layer on this level of just insanity with the lyrics that is just what is happening in this song.
Your narrator Joe and Timothy, the titular Timothy, are trapped in a mine, and when they're saved, I don't know how long they're down there. They never really give a distinct time frame. The only ones who come out are the narrator and Joe. And the question is, where on earth did Timothy go?
Yeah, what happened to Timothy? Well, but then you were telling me, because we were doing a little pre-work before the show, because that's another thing that we can do when we're in the same room.
I will tell you, we have been hanging out for about 2 hours since we got into the studio. I did not want to talk about fucking anything with you. I wanted to sit in pure silence, not to like ruin anything that we could talk about during this recording.
Well, we talked about some stuff that we were like, we should save this for the show.
Yeah.
But we were talking about it, and you said, the band tries to say, oh, it's not a person though.
It's their donkey. It's their mining donkey.
It's their mining donkey, which is not a thing,
which
by the way.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a thing if you think about like counterweight systems. They used to use their donkey as the counterweight.
Nice.
For a lot of things. And like, yeah, to carry your stuff if you were like mining for gold. Like,
right. But more when I say it's not a thing, I mean, it's like, it's not a common like a metaphor that anybody is going to know. No, it's just the mining donkey.
Oh, it's just
obviously.
The mining donkey. And they love the mining donkey so much, which is why all of the lyrics personify it as a human.
Yeah.
Right? Like we snuck up behind him and slammed his head.
You got so close. I mean, yeah, you got. It is, you mentioned that, and now I instantly started thinking about Maxwell Silverhammer, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's that kind of like move with the lyrics to just be like so blatant, but then to dial it back and say, oh, but it wasn't a person though. That doesn't work, guys. Like, which is it?
You know what? It worked in the 70s. That's the thing. It doesn't work now.
Did it though?
But,
How big did the Buoys?
That's true. I don't know another song by the Buoys.
Right.
But it really
you didn't know this song until it randomly showed up, right?
I mean, I've now known it for 10 years.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, and we may be shooting ourselves in the foot here because we're going to find out that like Michael Jackson started in the Buoys or something.
Yeah, before the Jackson 5, he was in the Buoys.
But what? It clearly didn't work, right? Like, this was a huge gamble, and I have no knowledge about this group. I've never heard of them until you asked me to listen to this song this week. And I got to be honest, I'm so put off by the song, and it's not even like I care that the song exists. It's just that it's an upsetting song, and I don't care to go back to that group anymore.
And I honestly feel like that's the reason why they're like, we did this thing. People clearly heard the song. People clearly want to know who are the Buoys. But then they're like, but that's enough. I just need to know who they are. I don't want to hear anything else by them. We got to tell people that Timothy was a donkey. Timothy was a donkey. Buoy number 2. I don't even know any of the names of the guys in this band. Right. I just know this song. And I know for a fact that like it was an under the radar song because my mother did not know this song until I brought it to her. Mm. And now it is like one of those songs that like we spin all the time because it's a real banger, but it's a dangerous banger in the fact that it's about cannibalism. And it's not about like wayward cannibalism. It's not doing bath salts and eating your friend's face in university, but they do still eat it, dude.
I mean, it's like talking about like the Dahmer party or something
exactly.
like that. It's like, this is weird. It did actually happen. These were real people, but like, yeah. Anyway, so I don't want to talk about this song anymore.
That's fine. It was in my head. I couldn't get it out of my head. And I probably would have put it on the Spooky Songs 3 playlist if I had thought about it before our episode. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to have a way to introduce it. And it was something like kind of lighthearted for Halloween. Because, I mean, this is dropping on the eve of All Hallows Eve. All Hallows Eve? Is that how you...
I don't know, but yeah, we
got plenty of other things to talk about.
Well, so one of the big ones that we were like kind of talking around all day, and we said last episode we were gonna have to come back to, but there's a ton going on still with Mario Wonder.
Can you believe it's been 20 years since Super Mario Brothers Wonder came out, and it's still so beloved? No, it's one of those things. I probably would usually have given it another week, but so much has been talked about on this game. So many articles have been coming out about like this level is everybody's Everest, and it's because it comes so early in the game that like I think it's time to discuss like some of my deeper thoughts with Super Mario Wonder.
Well, also, I don't know how much longer people are really going to be focused on it, because as this weekend that we're sitting in, we had Spider-Man 2 drop.
Spider-Man 2 dropped the same day as Super Mario Brothers Wonder. And think about that.
Right, yeah, like, but Spider-Man 2 conversations, I guess, are what are really people are getting into now. Alan Wake 2 came out, right? Then, we have, there's like a whole slew of stuff coming out.
Yeah, something, well, in the ROM hack community, Grand Poo World 3 comes out on the 10th of November. And then a week after that, you have the Super Mario Brother RPG remake.
Right, yeah, the RPG remake is coming out.
And one of these weekends, we're definitely going to get a stealth drop of the final Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right? That has to be coming down the pike.
I mean, it'd be weird for them to not do it before Black Friday, right?
Right,
Yeah.
especially when they have out there right now the package that comes with a Switch, Super Mario 8 Deluxe, and the DLC.
Right.
And so make sure that it's available so that if you're one of those parents who gets everything prepared for your kids before the day, so that when they open it up, they can just play it. Like that's going to be the juicy banger for Black Friday. I'm saying banger a lot this week.
You are, yeah.
And I apologize. I just want to. I think it's because you're here.
But no. So I also probably would have wanted to sit on Wonder a little bit longer, but I don't know if I'm going to have time to. And what's interesting is like, I had mentioned this earlier, but like this idea that I was worried at first when they said that they were going to be putting out Wonder, and then not a month later you were going to be getting the RPG remake, and I was like, that's a lot of Nintendo going on. Like, and
it's a lot of Mario. It's a lot of Mario in a small amount of time.
Which Nintendo just doesn't usually do.
Before we go any further, a WarioWare game comes out this Friday.
That's the one that I was trying to think of. Yeah. There's Nintendo is. This is a weird move for them to suddenly start just pushing a bunch of stuff out like this. There was a long stretch where we were having conversations on this very show about how we felt like there wasn't much on the Switch going on, and then all of a sudden now we're in this I don't know which I prefer more, but I was worried that we weren't going to be able to focus on Wonder enough.
Right.
But now I kind of feel like, no, we've got just the right amount of time, I think.
I think any longer it would start to ferment a little bit, right? Because already, I mean, the big thing that I'm coming to the table with is my theory that Nintendo designed Super Mario Brothers Wonder to be anti-speedrun. And that's kind of an incendiary sort of thing to say.
Yeah, because I actually would have said the opposite. It feels like they really wanted to open the doors to that community in a way that didn't disrupt. So the perfect example of that is New Luigi U, right?
Yeah.
Where they very clearly designed that for speedrunning, but it is so designed for speedrunning that it's not really a game
It's not even really accessible as a new speedrunner. Because I remember when they came out with it again on the Switch, and I'm like, oh, I might speedrun this, and I'm like, there's no fun to be had here. It's just kind of load up the level, run to the end. And I know that essentially that's what speedrunning is, but when you're playing a game that feels designed to do that, it's not very enticing.
Yeah. I mean, there is something about in that community and that whole world about, you're doing something that the game was not necessarily intended to do, right? Which is part of the joy of that whole process. And so having a game that does that kind of does defeat that purpose. But then in addition to that, there's a lot of people out there that don't do that. They don't speedrun games. So it's a really weird, it was a really weird move to put out Luigi U. So I felt like when I first started playing Wonder for a bit, it really felt like they were trying to take that stuff from Luigi U, bring it into a proper Mario game, and still give people that didn't do that the other experience.
Right.
And I still think I believe that. There's still a lot there that the badge system is definitely set up in a way where you can have on badges that don't break the game, but definitely make the game so much easier. The fact that you have characters that don't take damage with the Yoshis and Nabbit, right? Who else? There's somebody else has some special stuff too, right? Or is it just the Yoshis and Nabbit?
Just the Yoshis and Nabbit. Right now, the way that the speedrun leaderboard is done is there's restricted and there's unrestricted as the two category types.
Okay.
So restricted means that you can't use any of the Yoshis or Nabbit, and unrestricted is they're open to be used.
Okay.
So that's what speedrunning is, right? You start a leaderboard and then you delineate it based on the different special ways that the game can be completed.
And then there's got to be the same thing going on with the badges, right? Because there's some badges that
now all the badges are open. There are no badges that are off limits.
I mean, specifically, the biggest one that I can think of is the exclamation block badge that creates platforms for safety essentially throughout in all of the different levels, which is a wild system. The idea that they actually designed kind of a 0.5 version of every one of the levels, because you can go through it completely differently if you have this particular badge on. Is nuts. And then how does the badge system work when you're doing the multiplayer stuff, where you're kind of dropping in and out with each other?
So, I mean, you all still have the same badge. It's not like people can assign specific badges to themselves, because then that could really break the game.
Right.
Because you could have somebody with the jet badge and somebody with the exclamation point badge, and then, like, I'm just running as fast as possible over all of these platforms that avoid every single hole.
But in terms of what the game lets you do, you can do that, right? Like, can you mix and match badges?
You cannot mix and match. You always can only bring in one badge to a stage.
Okay. And it has to be the badge that somebody chooses.
Whatever badge. I think player one is kind of the king of the multiplayer. Right. So, yeah. So that's not even the thing. Stuff. And we haven't even gotten to, like, multiplayer speedruns yet. Right now, the other thing is you can't be online, so you can't be using standees or other players to save yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like, that's a rule that makes sense. But, I mean, the reason why I look at it and say it feels anti-speedrunner is there's no real way to skip anything. They very much want you to go through all 7 worlds and get a minimum required number of seeds before you can proceed. But that is so strange when you consider the entire lifespan of Mario.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, even New Super Mario Brothers had warp zones.
Right.
So to take away the warp aspect of it, it really kind of makes it feel more like Yoshi's Island, right? There's no time limit, and you have to do everything. There's no skipping anything. I mean, you don't have to do everything, but you have to get a requisite number of seeds in every world before you do it. I mean, that feels like an answer to Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Where when people speedrun that game, they never turn in moons.
Yeah.
They'll have like 100 moons on the side waiting to be turned in because they're using all of the warp that exists in that so that you can go between worlds and avoid using the spaceship, the Odyssey, right? The reason it's called Odyssey is the ship. So
and one of the reasons they do that is because of video length, right? Like there's just cutscene length that they're just avoiding completely because they just have to go through the painting rather than have to do the whole space stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing like that in Wonder, which is wild, especially because it feels like there are moments where it almost wanted there to be, and then they didn't go through with it.
The fact that you can skip some of the cutscenes is wild to me. Because, like, you can skip all the opening cutscenes. You can skip some cutscenes that happen during, like, every pre-fight before Bowser Jr., you can skip that whole thing.
Right. Which
is nice, right? Especially if you're going to be playing the game over and over again. I don't need to hear him cry about how you're breaking Daddy's volcano plan every time. But so that's nice. But then there are other cutscenes that you can't skip. Every time you complete a world, that whole long cutscene with Prince Florian, and it kind of reads like Super Mario World with Mario and Prince Florian beat this level.
Yeah, right.
Where will they go next? And I'm like, that's fun the first time through.
Right.
But if you were designing this game to be played by speedrunners, that would be something you would make skippable. And we know that Nintendo understands how to reformulate a game for speedrunners because we have the Tropical Freeze Switch release where you have Funky Kong that they admitted they're like, this is for speedrunners.
Yeah.
This is because we wanted there to be a speedrun mode, and this is how we accomplished that.
Yeah.
So it feels like that. But then the real evidence that I have towards this game is anti-speedrunner, in addition to no warp zones, is the fact that currently the fastest any percent time with a restricted character is 2 hours and 12 minutes. The quickest with a unrestricted is 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's very long for a Mario speedrun.
I mean, that's long for many speedruns.
Yeah,
but yeah, what are the stats on some of the other Mario games?
So, like Super Mario Brothers 3, any percent or like 100%, like Mitch Flower Power, I think is down to like an hour and 10 minutes. Maybe I think he broke it down to an hour and 9 minutes going through everything in the game.
Right.
So like that's where that's at. And that's not even using like the any percent on Super Mario Brothers 3 is 3 minutes. Yes, that requires code manipulation, but the thing that got everybody into speedrunning, right? The reason why you and I sit in a studio right now and discuss speedrunning is that old TAS video of Super Mario Brothers 3 being completed in 17 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Like, undeniably. The reason why a speedrunner goes on the late night shows is because enough people saw that 17-minute clear of the game. And the clear of Super Mario Brothers 3 now, completely live, right? RTA, real-time adjusted, no tricks, no tool assisting at all, is lower than that 17 minutes. Because that's it. Super Mario Brothers, right? Like, the golden number on the original game is 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Like, that's like, they're like, we don't know if we can ever break it. That is executing everything perfectly.
Right.
And then a full playthrough of that game is like 30 minutes. So, like, and I understand that you don't want your games to get beaten, like, crazy quick, right? But, like, to not even give, like, an analog to 11 exit, say, for Super Mario World, right? Which is around, like, I think 7 minutes is where that one's at. I haven't looked at that board in a really long time, and a lot of new tricks have come out. But even then, like, all forts is less than 90 minutes. Like, the fact that they are crossing the 2 hour, and granted, the speedrun boards have only been open for a week.
Right.
But those, like, fastest times have, like, only 1 or 2 deaths in them.
Yeah.
There's very little where you can fix or, like, game out and modify to be perfect, where you're going to save significant time.
Right. The only thing that would bring those numbers down would be skipping significant parts of. There it is. Yeah.
Right? It would feel weird to be in a studio and not crack open a can. I do apologize.
But, like, yeah, the only real way that those numbers are going to come down would be if there was some way to skip significant portions of the game, and like you said before, there just isn't. You need each Wonder Seed in order to get into the castle, in order to get to Bowser. In order to get those Wonder Seeds, or the Royal Seeds, in order to get those Royal Seeds, you need a certain number of Wonder Seeds from each level, and there are definitely levels you don't have to do, but they're very few and far between.
Yeah, but so we are we're 9 days away from the release of this game, right? The game released 9 days ago. They have already figured out the fastest seeds to get in order to get the royal seed from each world.
Yeah,
there's no way that those routes are going to change unless there's something wildly significant that happens.
Yeah, the lines are already figured out, right? So, and one of the other big things that happens partway through this game is the worlds open up, right? And so I'm wondering if there's something in there that, like, I don't know. I was, like, trying to, just before we started, trying to see if there was something that maybe in that with, like, the badge system or the certain levels that you can and you can skip and all that, because the worlds open up. But it really isn't. If that had happened earlier and the worlds had opened up earlier,
there'd be a real big significant routing change there.
Right.
Because as it is, and this is where I thought, like, this might be a controversial moment for Super Mario Brothers Wonder when I had gotten my early access to it, is when the game opens up and becomes an open world game for the 4th, 5th, and 6th worlds.
Right.
It's like, why didn't we just do that when we got to the Petal Islands? Why did it, like, because it's not like they're just open world and you can sort of like in a Mega Man game, you can just choose. There are levels that you need to complete in order to go through there.
Right.
So then looking at it, it seems like it'd be easy enough to just go do the desert and then do a couple of levels, do the mines, and then do the lava. But a lot of the routes have you go to the lava first so that it's just cleanup coming back.
Yeah.
And, like, that makes sense to me, right? Because you're putting in more time into Petal Islands than anything else.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't know. But the fact that right now it's 2 hours for any percent and it is 6 hours for 100%. And again, that's the rules that they've decided upon. They've decided that 100% means that you have all 6 medals.
Yeah.
So that means that you're going to have to do some grinding to get all of the standees, especially where there's RNG involved.
Right.
If you don't go to the standee shop in the sky where you can choose your character. But if you're spending $30 to get, so there are 12 characters. You start with one of those. So 144 minus 12, you're at, God, I should be able to do this math at 132, right?
Okay. Yep.
You need 132 standees to get the medal for the standees.
So we're talking 1,320 coins, right?
Yeah.
And that's if you
Well, no, 1,320 coins if you bought the 10 coin one and got a unique statue every single
time. Which doesn't happen.
Which is probably not going to happen. So you're more looking at was it 13, 13, 13, 20, 20, 20? I can do the math, but 39. About 4,000 coins if you just go to the standee vendor and buy them that way.
Yeah.
And because Nintendo was married to, you can only have 999 coins right now, dear. Like,
yeah, you have to do that and go back and run and go back. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also need to buy all of the badges. So that's another expense that you're doing. You have to get all the Wonder Seeds. So that's 100 flower coins in every world that are immediately going to a seed. Like, it's just, like, when I saw that 6 hours, I'm like, oh. But then I'm like, that's actually conservative. Because, like, I think about the first time I 100% the game, and it was over about, like, 9 hours.
Yeah.
So, and that was with stopping. That's the other thing. That is 6 hours continuous gameplay.
Yeah, you
cannot
stop,
take
right?
a break in order for it to be considered a valid run.
Oof, man. Yeah, no, I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's just, it's interesting that they introduce so many mechanics that feel like they want.
Well, I mean, the jet run badge, the dash badge, the triple jump badge, all things that will make different parts of that game much more accessible to somebody who is trying to go fast.
I'm trying to get through it, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't really help if for 100%, I need to get all 6 medals, so... Yeah. And for any percent, like, yeah, I can avoid a couple of purple coins, but at the same time, pretty much every level I go into, if I don't get the Wonder Seed, is it worth it? Like,
right. I wonder if I have to, like, really consider, though, if this is just Nintendo doing the Nintendo thing of buying into a thing and never fully understanding it, much like when, like, we've talked about with, like, all of their online service, how long it's really taken them to really figure out how to do online gaming when every other company's been doing it for 15, 20 years now. Yeah. But, like, Nintendo is only just kind of getting their handle on some of that sometimes. There are some games that are coming out from them that are just...
Well, let's talk about Super Mario Brothers Wonder. We're already in it. The only reason that there's online is because the game was too hard. People were playing it in the Nintendo studio, like their whole offices, and they're like, this is too hard. There should be a way for me to save myself. So they're like, oh, well, we have this, like, asynchronous online model that we've been toying with. Do you want to try it with that? And they're like, now it's fun.
Yeah. Well, and you know, that is something that I have definitely felt with this game, is that I've gotten through it. I've beaten Bowser. I've gotten that one medal. And then I looked back at going through and getting everything, and I was like, I can probably do about 90% of this. But there's some of these where, I mean, any of the ones, any of the challenge ones where you have to defeat the enemies, what are they called? The KO
the arenas. Yeah.
The KO arenas. I'm like, I could push myself, but to the point where this game would no longer be fun to play. Or I can just bring a couple of friends with me and we can bang this out. And it was a mile difference between going through it myself and going through it with just one other person. You know, like, it was like, okay, this is the way to do this, right?
Those knockout arenas, the first one was the only one that I didn't complete the first time, and with all the coins. I'll just admit that. And I'm not bragging. It's just, I'm just being honest about that.
Yeah, we talked about your sight reading before.
Yeah, right? Because it's like, if you have to do it under 70 seconds to do it. So that's how I approached every single arena afterwards, is like, 70 has to be the fastest they want me to do it. And then I get to the one and I'm like, oh, 71. I was all pissed. But then they're like, no, we gave you 90 seconds on this one. And I'm like, I completed it 19 seconds faster than you thought should be the like, and that's completely just sight reading it. And that one, I had not found one of the hidden levels. It was like the one with the ghosts.
Yeah.
And I didn't find the ghost level because it was shrouded in fog. So there were also enemies I fought that I had never fought before. Right. So I didn't know how to beat them.
Yeah.
So still I'm like, I can't believe it was a second over. And I'm going to have to come back and play this whole stupid what? And that happened a bunch of times where I'm just like, oh, you guys knew. You knew that, this is going to be hard if we impose the 70-second time limit.
Yeah, the back and forth, like the push and pull of trying to make this a difficult game but also an accessible game is it's really weird, especially when you consider all of the talk that's been going around about how they took their time to make this one.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not I'm not disappointed in what came out. I really like it. We talked about this last week. Like,
Yeah.
I've only really fallen more in love with the game as I've played it. But it doesn't feel like it has that level of polish that they keep talking about.
Right. I mean, that level of polish that I think they keep talking about is the fact that speedrunners are throwing themselves against every surface. They're not finding clips.
Mm-hmm.
They're not finding exploits.
Right.
Like, they made sure all of that was taken care of.
Yeah.
That this was not going to be another Metroid Dread,
Mm-hmm.
for example, where it's very easy to get from the beginning of Metroid Dread to the end of Metroid Dread because of, like, one little problematic piece of code.
Yeah, right. Or even in, I mean, the Mario world, Mario 64, infamously,
Yeah.
like the speed runs of that game are like insanely short because of like glitches and stuff that people have figured out, right?
Yeah. That you can beat that game with 0 stars
Right,
is
right.
insane.
You're right.
So, but yeah, so I've enjoyed it, but as I watch it, I mean, that thing where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to go back and get everything.
Mm-hmm.
There are popular Mario streamers who are like, fuck it, I'm not going to go get all the purple coins.
Right.
I'm not going to go touch the top of every flagpole.
Right.
So they're not going to get to play like what honestly feels like the final level feels like what they kind of wanted this game to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks that there's only one living example of that.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to spoil it for you, but the mechanics that are present in that, if they had been throughout the entire game...
Are you talking about some stuff up in the special world levels?
Up in the special world.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you unlock it. I think you need to have the 3 medals...
Mm-hmm.
4 medals. You need to have at least 4 of the medals. You don't need all the badges. You don't need all the standees to get into it. That's what I know from my own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But what that level does and the way that it plays with the mechanics of the game and feels like a wholly unique experience while still feeling like Mario.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of Mario people that I know, I have talked to, and they say, like, at the end of the day, it feels too easy. And I'm like, that's crazy because it's Mario. Like, what are you talking about? Like, they're kind of easy, guys. It's just that we're older now, so we see that. You put a 3-year-old, right? That's when I played the first Super Mario Brothers when I was 3, in front of this game. They're not going to think it's too easy.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah, no, I am really enjoying my time with it, and I am happy to be going back with friends, and there is stuff that I will do on my own. You know, there's tons of stuff I will do on my own, but there is some stuff that I have just already resigned myself to saying, no, that's just not going to happen. And this isn't the first Mario game that has happened with. I felt the same way with some stuff in 3D World.
Yoshi's Island. I'm never 100%ing Yoshi's Island. It can die in a ditch as far as I'm concerned. You're a great game, but your 100% mechanic is booty punch.
Yeah.
And it's par for the course for the Nintendo.
Yeah.
They're trying something new. They're trying something to encourage exploration.
Yeah.
And it's a bridge too far. And thank goodness it happened in Yoshi's Island and not Super Mario 64.
Yeah, right.
Because they learned a lot of the problems with
Right.
putting it into Yoshi's Island.
Yeah. There's just some stuff in this game that is not as well put together for me as everybody seems to. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody at Nintendo keeps talking about it being
Right, the way that they're patting themselves in the back with, like, we've constructed this game that is flawless. And it's like, it's a good game.
Yeah.
I think that the reason that they keep insisting that we wanted it to be the best game that it was is to explain why this didn't come out in April with another piece of Mario
yeah, why it wasn't
media
side by side with all the other Mario stuff.
To use the term media again.
Oh, man. So besides Wonder, have you been doing anything else this week?
Well, you know what? So you told me last Sunday that you were coming into town.
Mm-hmm.
And I got real nostalgic for the Devon and the Siegen times.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to fill up a schedule for you and I for the 3 days that you were here that was as close to back when we were in university as possible. And the number one thing on my list to do that was to find a house party. And I'm like, hopefully I can, it's Halloween weekend, right? We're recording smack in the middle of Halloween weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I should be able to find, you can hear that. I was like, I can find a Halloween party to get invited to.
Right.
This is something that should not be difficult. I very much look forward to doing this.
Right.
So I found one, And then you drop in my lap that, oh, I'm going to be hanging out with my family on Saturday. And I'm like, but I still want to go to the house party, right? I worked
Sorry.
so hard no, and it's fine. I'm not like, I understand it, right? You're not here to see me, Sejin. As much as we have been friends for 18 years and been recording this for almost 8 of those 18 years.
Yeah.
You have a family, right? You're not blessed to live with your family the way that I am. So of course family's going to come first. But I'm still going to go to the house party, right? I clawed to get an invitation to a house party. So I did it. And I wound up at, and I'm saying this, he gave me his permission. He consented me to using his name. My friend Justin Y invited me as a +1 with Justin B to his house party out in Salem, Connecticut, which at the end of the day, at least I get to say Halloween weekend, I spent that in Salem. And no one's going to ask a follow-up, Sejin. Nobody's going to think that I don't mean Salem, Massachusetts. Unless they hear this podcast.
But then you've answered.
Yeah.
You've already let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. So I go to this house party because, like, I don't know. I mean, first of all, with the pandemic, like I don't want to, like, it's always going to kind of be in the room, the idea of the pandemic. I haven't been to one since the last time I went to a house party was an Easter party in 2019. And it was the raginest Easter party I have ever been to. Like, seriously, here's 4 shots of Fireball when you walk in. You can't move till you finish them. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting that level of it.
Right,
but then
right.
prior to that, the last house party that, like, was a nighttime Halloween one was in 2015.
Okay.
With the people from the Couch podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a blast. They did not have a good time. But I had a blast playing freaking beer pong with strangers and almost getting into a fight. Like, all of those memories that I love about going to a house party.
Right.
So I show up at this house party. And I went the lazy route, right? There's a whole thing on social media right now about how men get to be like, oh, yeah, I'm Mario because I have a Mario hat on. Doesn't matter that I don't have on overalls or just a mustache. I'm Mario. Right now, Sejin, I imagine I'm an extra from the Tony Hawk games.
There you go. Thanks.
Oh, I'm my Build-A-Skater character from Tony
I'm
Hawk.
my own creative character. Yeah.
And honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm very fearful that on some Halloween the magic's gonna happen and everybody becomes their costumes. So, like, if it's not really a costume, I'm pretty safe. Right? My friend Justin B was dressed as a lobster, and I'm like, it would suck to have real claws, man. Like, I want to be as much a human as possible if that type of dark magic comes to life. So I show up at the party, and I'm Luigi. And to be Luigi, I just put on a Luigi hat. But it worked. I had on a green shirt with it, and I was Luigi. All right, we just talked about Wonder all this time. I roll up with Justin B., who is a lobster, and our friend Sherman, who was Prison Mike. And it was just wonderful.
Nice.
And as we walk in, we are greeted by Carol Baskins and the Tiger King, Joe Exotic. That's what the host dressed up as. And their child, who, like, I imagine he's younger than 2 because he wasn't very vocal, but he was walking around, he was exploring, is dressed as a tiger, which is kind of cute, right? Like, they have a tiger. I mean, I have never watched the show. We couldn't even talk about the show because of everything right now, but I didn't watch it. I had other things to do when there was...
Yeah.
I was still going to work. So there's a little tiger kid, right? There's a little kid dressed as a tiger. And he runs to the kitchen and hides in the cupboard. And I don't know how to, like, the words came out of my mouth. I didn't know how to expect you reacting to that.
I don't know. I don't know what the, like, there's so much about I grew up in a big family, right?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of friends of family that friends that are close enough that we consider them family and all that. So I didn't have a lot of parties growing up that didn't have kids and stuff at them, that didn't have this, like, weird dynamic to them. But at some point in the college years, right, we found ourselves going to more and more parties that didn't have
children there,
but also didn't have adults over a certain age there too, right? Like, there was,
it was kind of like the Lost Boys in Never Neverland.
Right. There was this level of party that we suddenly started going to. And those parties were awesome, were bangers,
Right,
right?
because there was no one too responsible to be like, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't jump off the roof trying to drink 2 beers, and whoever finishes their beers first wins.
Yeah, well, more like maybe you guys shouldn't have a smoke off to see who can get through a full pack of cloves, which we watched somebody throw up one night, I think.
That was a good party, though. I have to admit, the memories, that was a good party.
Well, Seth always had a bag of cloves every time he showed up, and it was always a fresh one. He was like, just open them up. But yeah, so like recreating that party again, like I think is something that like people are trying to do, but now they've got kids, or
now they have children,
right,
yes. So.
Or what's happening more and more nowadays with people our age, or we now live back with our parents again, right? So like there's just all of these levels to people trying to recapture that. It's just not going to happen, right? But I don't know how you learn to go back to those other kinds of parties.
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult because like we didn't have parties for like 4 years, right?
Right, yeah.
So like this is the first party where I was invited to where I'm like, yeah, this feels like a safe party to go to.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly feel safe enough to have this event.
Well, and if this kid is as young as you say he was, then I mean, like he wouldn't have existed 4 years.
Yeah, no, he's a Pando baby. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Love the Pando babies. They make our dreams come true. Anywho, yeah, like. But it was so strange because, like, I remember being a kid, right, and those types of large parties,
right,
and I would like go to my parents, and it wouldn't be like, oh, I'm high, like, it would be like I'm a little overwhelmed, like, Dad, can I sit with you?
Yeah.
But running to a cupboard to hide in the cupboard was very strange. And then what took it a step further than me is every cupboard in my kitchen is full of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This cupboard was empty. Like, this cupboard is designated for him to be like, I'm a little overwhelmed. Let me take a step back. And again, kids are going to have those adjustments for your kids. I'm all for it. It was just very strange to see it in practice.
Yeah.
And then like another family, like right as we had showed up, they were all dressed as characters from One Piece, the manga, specifically the manga.
Mm.
I've never seen this anime, and I'm like, oh good, you're a bag of laughs. Where are you gonna be hanging out? I'm gonna be the exact opposite location in this building. And it was a family, and it was like probably like a 7-year-old. And then mom and dad. And I'm just like, that also seems weird.
Right.
Like, no one else brought their 7-year-old, so he's just going to be alone?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's like family parties are a very different vibe than a house party, which are a very different vibe than a kid's party. Like and I feel like maybe you were set up to fail.
Yeah, I mean, when I tell you, so everybody knows about the second fridge in a house is just for alcohol.
Right.
And I arrive, and the host, he's like, hey man, you go downstairs, there's a refrigerator, it's stocked. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm thinking, there's a couple of... I opened it up. It was like, oh my God, it's Beervana in here. There was all sorts of mixers and all sorts of different, like, hard seltzers, different, like, levels of ABV beer. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, and I'm just like, this is not the type of party that this is, though.
Right.
Like, this is older people, right? Like I think one of the oldest people was like almost 50 in attendance, and there's no issue there, but it's just like
they're not drinking like this at all.
They're not drinking the way not to brag, right? And no, I'm very, like, it's not something I do all the time. I probably drank the most at this party.
Yeah.
This is like I rolled in with a Natty Daddy. I had 2 Moosehead lagers, and then I drank 4 oak vanilla porters from Sam Adams, because the host had opened it up, and he's like, I don't like this. And I'm like, so you want them gone? And he's like, I don't want to ever drink them again. So, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll drink the rest of them. So that's fine. And then I also did a shot of moonshine. And the shot of moonshine is what I'm going to shine a light on, because I'm an asshole. I'm sorry for the pun. I'm going to shine a light on that because it was apple pie flavored moonshine.
Okay.
And the only reason I picked it is because there was like coffee bean, butter pecan, and there were 3 each of those, and there was only 1 apple pie. The only thing that went into my decision to pick the apple pie was that it was short packed, for lack of a better term. So I pick it up, And I take it, and I'm like, oh, that's good. And it was really good, right? And then they're like, oh, you had one of the moonshines. It was very tasty. And then they're like, can I see it for a second? And the girl who took it, she was dressed as Russell from Up.
Okay.
And she read it, and she goes, did you know this is 35 ABV? And I'm like, no, but it's moonshine, so
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it's high alcohol content. And then, like, everybody else, like, kind of freaked out at, like, the high level of alcohol in the moonshine shots. And I'm like, okay.
What do they think is in their shots?
I don't know, man.
What are they
like,
drinking? What are they drinking otherwise?
That's sort of the reaction was that. And then another apple pie miraculously appeared in the box later on. So I'm guessing somebody thought better of doing their shot when they realized how much it was. And also the coffee and the butter pecan, they were only 17. So, like, there were lower ones, but I'm a guy who, when I worked and lived out of Florida, right, when I was with Carnival Cruise Lines, one night we went to a guy's house who made moonshine. And he's
surprised you can like see
right.
Anymore,
the fact that I
right?
can see, the fact that I can sometimes competitively complete in video games is a miracle, Sitchin. That's a real miracle. And the fact, and it comes down to the fact that we did, and he's like, so I'm gonna give you some of the shine, and I'm gonna take some of these cigars, right, and they're gonna be soaking in the shine, and you don't smoke them until a week later. So we're like, we all like, thank you, like Florida man, for lack of a like, he's probably the true Florida man. So we sneak onto the ship this 8-ounce mason jar that is full of 5 cigars soaking in moonshine. And
what is that supposed to do?
Well, I gotta tell you, it's the best cigar I've ever had. And also it flavored the shine a little bit.
Yeah,
so like the flavors of the tobacco kind of, so like it was a weird symbiotic relationship that these two items have. So the next week comes and we all go up on deck and we smoke the cigars, and then we're like, oh, now we gotta drink the shine. And let me tell you, that was strong. You want to be nervous about 36 ABV, you should try Random Dude's moonshine. And I'm just like, I've been drinking shine my whole life, so I think I'm gonna be okay. But I understand, like, I'm used to buy the 110. What the hell was that called?
The White Lightning or the what are you talking
White
about?
Lightning. I don't know the name of it. Everclear.
Yeah.
Everclear 110. So like, it's as much alcohol as possible. The only reason it's not actually 100% alcohol is because there needs to be some water in there. Otherwise, it won't move. Like, it'll become a solid.
Right.
I used to make riot punches with that stuff.
I was gonna say.
And this is
jungle
this
juice.
is
shit.
very, very tame compared to.
But that's it, all. That's more to the point of what I was saying. Is I feel like they didn't know what kind of party they wanted.
They wanted to
be,
have, yeah.
And you got sold a bill of goods that was not the party you expected.
Well, yeah, and then that really happens with code names when code names gets broken out. I have to tell you, I loved this party. I made the most of this situation. When I was told it was a house party, I even said to Justin B, I'm like, I have built this party up in my mind. I know that it will never match the party I have built in my head, but I'm still looking to have a good time. And I will say, I had a great time. I met a bunch of new people. I had some really great conversations. They had Chinese food, because one of the conversations I had was a woman dressed as Dorothy Gale. And she's like, yeah, we got it from Oriental Palace. And that place, you need to know that they have their Chinese food menu and their American Chinese food menu. And you got to specify. And I'm like, oh, that's why this stuff is delicious.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is look at your crab rangoon, because you bite into a crab rangoon that's Chinese crab rangoon, it's just crab meat in there. American Chinese crab rangoon, that's mostly going to be cream cheese.
Cream cheese, yeah. They actually call it fried cream cheese out in Utah.
Oh,
they don't even bother calling them crab rangoons.
Yeah.
You just order fried cream cheese.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was this great time. And then Codenames got worked out. And even if we hadn't won, I was having such a good time playing Codenames, especially with, like, people I don't really know. So I need to, like, all right, I've known you for 2 hours. What do I know about your psyche? How can I... How can I make this work?
How can I communicate?
Favor?
Yeah, how can I communicate with you telepathically when we've only just met, right?
Yeah. and had a blast. Like, it was like a very good time. I hope that I do get to see the people again. They were very welcoming, beautiful home, and to like have food, right? Like, I wasn't expecting food. I did what I used to do before I went to parties, and I got 4 cheeseburgers from McDonald's to lay down a nice foundation to soak up all the alcohol.
Right. All the moonshine that you were going to be putting on top of it. Yeah. Yeah. Man.
So, I think you would have had a blast. I think that the two of us would have elevated it to something that we would have wanted it to be. So it's kind of good that we didn't get to blow all of their minds. But
yeah.
That was a fun thing that I did this week.
Yeah, see, I'm still in with the roller derby crowd out by us,
Nice.
And so you want to talk about house parties like we used to go to, like that's the kind of bashes that they throw, that kind of stuff, and they go hard. And so like we are still going to plenty of those kinds of parties, but we do have those friends around us that are now starting to settle down. They're starting to have kids. They're starting to do that, especially because with the pandemic, a lot of people kind of shifted out of that mode, and I really think we've had to be very kind of nosy sometimes when like people ask about having us over for a party, like just to kind of feel for what kind of party it is, not because we're not interested in going to these, but people seem to have lost the ability to judge what how to do things with other people because of the last 4 years,
I get that. I mean, yeah, like communication have just kind of broken down in a lot of ways. Like, we were forced to communicate with people face to face before.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 4 years and the development of so many different ways to avoid that.
Right.
Like, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like,
people have not quite gotten the things back together yet. Yeah. Wild.
Yes. So, I mean, the other thing that I did this week was book this studio, which I want to say that. Like, we are recording in a studio right now. Like, that's not us joking. I'll give them the shout out. It's True Music Studio in Smithfield, Rhode Island. It's a good time. I'm having a good time being in the studio doing it. But, Sejan says, how do you feel about recording in person next week? That's how he tells me that he's coming back and he's going to be close enough to me for us to meet in Rhode Island and record. Yeah. So I'm like, that's fine. I can do that. But then like I'm thinking, I've been cleaning out the basement where I record usually. Mm-hmm. So like I don't really have space to have 2 people downstairs. And then it's like we haven't done this. The show's been going for 7 years, right? We started in 2017 and we're in our 7th year of recording.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a monumental occasion. Let's try to do it like professional and in an actual studio.
For the first time in our lives, let's try and do it right.
I mean, that's such a weird thing to say because I feel like you and I have always tried to do it right. And then at the end, we had to compromise when the people who hired us to do it right were like, why do you think we would have like actual dimmers for you to plug these lights into?
Yeah.
Well, because you're a theater. Like that I think that's why.
Yeah, no. But cobbling shit together is
cobbling
what we've done
shit together
our
what we do.
Yeah.
So cobbling together and finding an actual studio that had time available last minute.
Yeah.
Like it was fun going through and contacting, and they got back and they were able to accommodate us, and that was a large part of my week was also making sure that this recording could happen.
Yeah.
So, and I'm happy that I did.
Well,
I'm having a blast. Oh, of course.
It's been, I mean, like my week has just been like nothing. Like because I was hosting family out there and then surprised them and came back this way. I have like, I'm sure that I will be able to look back on this week with fond memories, but in this moment right now, I couldn't, the last day I remember was last Sunday.
That's completely fair.
Yeah.
I mean, like you coming here and like trying to get and figure stuff out, it totally changed my Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Like I would like go in with like, these are my plans. And then I'd get information. I'm like, okay, I need to adapt to that. I need to like make sure that it works. And then like, I still got you a birthday gift, right? Because your birthday also happened in this time period. That's like part of the reason why you're back, right? And thankfully, Jill Biden did not almost risk this birthday party, right? What a weird enemy or antagonist for last year's hangout.
Yeah,
she did not ruin your birthday, though.
No.
I want to punch your fist for that. But yeah, so like making sure that I get everything together, that was fun. But yeah, it was your birthday. So like, how was your birthday? Like,
I mean, like I said, I can't fully grasp
Grasp it.
everything
Yeah,
that
that's
I
fair,
have
yeah.
done the last few days. Like, at some point, I was on a plane for 6 hours.
Of course, yeah.
You know? Like,
Some point you were in Chicago.
yeah.
And that was my favorite part of the whole thing because you sent me a very Chicago gif that I'm just like, all right, he's doing well. I mean, he's still in the plane, but he's doing well.
We came in through Midway. I've never been to Midway before. Yeah, let's do
That-
airline humor for a little bit. Let's do that. That always works.
Well,
Really
we're going to finish with local references, so we might as well.
But yeah, it's been a blast. And the birthday went really well, and yeah, being able to surprise my family has been awesome. You know,
Cool.
every person that I have been able to meet, we have not told I am here. So it's just been one surprise after another. It's been kind of awesome.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, but it's been good. But this has been mostly my week is like doing the traveling,
Trying to
and
figure
and
out and to
figure out all this
travel.
stuff. Yeah.
I mean, hosting family cannot be easy, right? Because
Right.
you got to keep them entertained.
Yeah.
They come out to see you, but then you got to be like, this is what I do. I sit in my basement and I play Super Mario Wonder because I want to talk about it. Like,
No, you take the parents up to Park City, you show them where Olympic Village is.
Nice.
They ooh and ah out the window at like the old, they still have like the old runs up and stuff. They still practice on them. Have I talked about this before?
no, I mean, you've talked about how it's still there because
Yeah.
you go up to Park City.
But you can go out and you can see them like go down the runs, and then what they do for practice, the aerial stuff at least, they just go off and then just land in the water. So they just have this big like pool of water, and then you just watch these guys just slide on down. And then they just splash and everybody cheers, and they just do that for like an hour or two a day.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but Utah recently named the #2 best place to ski in America.
Number 2.
Colorado's #1.
If I cared,
And
I would
you're
be
right.
angry.
Vermont is #3. Like, so it's Colorado, Utah, Vermont?
Yeah, well, people are always like really weirded out when in Utah when I talk about the fact that like mountains exist in the east.
Yeah, we all think about the Great Salt Lake. That's all we think about when we think about Utah.
But in Utah, if you tell anybody, like they're always just like, "What do you think of our mountains?" And you're like, "Yeah, great." But I know what a mountain is. Like I don't. I've gone.
Your
camping.
mountains aren't special, Utah.
but they are so convinced that they are. They get like offended when they find out about the Appalachians. They're like, "What?"
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that if anyone else I told from Utah about you being the #2 best ski place in America, they'd have had some thoughts.
Oh yeah,
So-
I mean, skiing is again, it's a cult. Like there is,
It always has been. That's not new.
Yeah, but like people like skip work to go up the mountain, and it's completely you get this kind of all over the place. Like in the Midwest, you get a lot more. That's the other thing, they don't consider themselves Midwest.
Right.
But in the Midwest, you get a lot of kids that will like leave because it's like harvest day or hunts of specific type, right? In Utah, it is like skiing, and when the skiing opens up, kids like are gone just from school for like 2 weeks. It's just nuts. But like we get some of that up in New England sometimes too. There's some stuff that people are just like.
Well, I mean, the Red Sox. It's the Red Sox. There are so many episodes of TV shows that are set in New England where they're like, "We took off opening day for the Sox," and I'm like, I hate that that's true. I hate how nailed you guys just made us.
Yeah, sports in general, right? Like being pulled out to go to a Patriots game was like something that a lot of my friends did when I was in high school. Like I remember those days. But it's just they are so into just running up the damn mountain to the point where like some people will fight for like remote work time so that they can like be working while they're skiing. They're like, I'm just gonna put my headset in and just go. And like they call into meetings and it's just like, hey, it's a little loud in the back. He's like, oh yeah, well I'm going about 10 miles an hour right now, so
You say that and I immediately think of like there's a specialized ski suite so that you can be going down the mountain as you're like, oh yes, I'm coding. Yes.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Yeah, well, it's not me that's doing this stuff.
Well, yeah, obviously, but that's the image I have in my mind is that like you're in a little pod and you're still going down the mountain, but you can work as well.
I'm trying to think if there is something that I am like in the cult on. I don't know if there's anything like hugely major that I'm.
So meeting new people again last night, the question is, so clearly you're into video games, like after that, and you like movies, but like what else are you? And I'm like, I try not to ascribe to any one thing. I don't want to be like distinguished or labeled as this guy. And a lot of that comes from like going to the comic book shop and finding out that they called me the turtle guy. And I'm like, that's fine. I know that I buy Ninja Turtle stuff, but also you covet my collection. When I sold off all my Marvel stuff, he's like, you're not selling any of your Turtle stuff? And I'm like, oh, you mean my like near complete collection of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics? I'm going to hold on to those. And a lot of that's for like sentimental reasons, because I was like giving them by guys who drew them. Like, oh, you don't have a copy of that? Here you go.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, but I don't know. I mean, have you ever like taken time off of school or work to go do something
all the time? All the time. Well, I mean, we can't talk about it, A, because of the restraints that we have on ourselves, but also if things are going to get worked out prior to Ninja Christmas, there's a big story I'm excited to tell on the show about that. So,
and that's more like what I mean is I don't think that there's anything that I'm like, oh, I need to dedicate myself to this thing so much to the point where I need to put off other things in my life for it. Like I don't know what that would be for me. I don't know.
I guess the interesting thing about what you're saying is you're talking about like school or work as the other thing in your life that you would need to like take off in order to pursue something.
Yeah.
I look at it as the pursuits of anything is far more important than going to school or being at work, right? Like, so like weirdly, I would say I'm more dedicated to those things, and it is like being like, oh, I should go to work today. But you know what? There's a new Spider-Man game out. Oh, new Double Dragon game. Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that. I'm probably gonna like in a weird way, I guess I am kind of dedicated to work, and I was dedicated to school, and those would be the things that like, you can take the back seat, you motherfucker, because I'm doing something way more important than you. Yeah. Book learning's taking a back seat to me going to the fourth quarter kickoff.
Yeah. But, I think about things like me and the family definitely do things like cooking and stuff, right? Yeah. And that's something that we invest a lot of time and money into, but also at the same time, I am willing to go anywhere with that. Like, I don't have beliefs that, like, there's certain... I'm sure there's something I'm not thinking of. But
bet you have some sort of tier list or some sort of, like, ranking where, like, oh, if it's this, I will definitely do it. It will become it. But, like, to not be aware of that is probably so freeing, right? Because...
No, like I said, I'm sure that like when I get home, my family will remind me of a million things that I'm like that with. But like, I don't know. I would love to, like some people are Disney people, right? They're like, we take the time off every year to make it a point to go to Disney. And if you try and talk to us during the month of April, sorry, but we're down,
We're in Disneyland.
Right. Yeah. Like, and that's like a huge thing for them. And that's awesome. But I don't know, maybe that means that I need to find something.
No, I mean, I think that, and what really is impressive to me in terms of what we're talking about here is, I think for you and I, we've always kind of kept that close. Like it is probably like a movie or a television show, and we'll give that some like priority, which is why I'm like really happy that we've been able to go as long as we have without like, it's not a crutch or anything like that, but like to talk about other things besides those things that on some level we are most passionate about. Yeah. Like, it's been kind of freeing, and to realize that, and then you come to that, like, it's like we've come to this shared realization that, like, maybe we're not defined by one thing. Maybe there's a reason the Say Report is the show about everything.
This
because
is the reason that the strike's gone on too long. It's happening.
Yeah,
I can't believe that there's a chance that it's going to go on for a year. Like that's
crazy.
I
mean, so you got to think like it started in May with the writers, and then July 13th, real easy to remember that as it's Dad's birthday, is when SAG-AFTRA started, and I would want nothing more than for my mother's birthday coming up this week, the SAG-AFTRA strike to come to an end. But in addition to the levy that happened and that whole weird thing, the 57 cents, it was 57 cents. I looked it up after last week's episode.
Nice.
And then George Clooney's cabal coming in and saying, we'll give you extra money so we can just end this. But then the latest letter of people saying, like, we shouldn't take a shit deal.
Yeah.
Like, we should stay on strike until we get everything that we want. And the studios, like, the fact that they came back to the table is kind of a big deal.
Right.
But them saying, and so violently and vehemently that, like, if we don't have a solution by the middle of November, we have no incentive to settle before January of 2024.
Which is nuts.
And it makes sense. Like, I heard that and I'm like, that's wild. But also, yeah, like they kind of shut down in December anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no incentive to like.
Yeah, the problem is that ignores so much about what goes on in the industry besides the product. Right. And like that's always been the biggest issue. That is kind of what this whole strike has been about. Is that so many people related to the final product that have not been getting their due. Right. And that is just so indicative of that whole attitude. And it sucks that we're 110 days into the damn thing and they still think that way. Right.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah. But also, as much as they're like, oh, we lost everything for 2023, on some level, like not having to pay out the money that they were in dire straits before this strike happened.
Mm-hmm.
And like devil's advocate, it kind of feels like the studios probably wanted another work stoppage in order to get their books in order.
Yeah.
So.
But, you know, what does that mean that they were in dire straits? We only know the information that they had been providing. And so much of both of these strikes, the writer strike and the actor strike, have been about how the information that's out there is all cooked. It's all manipulated in order to make things that are getting, you know, if you talk to a cinema owner, they will swear up and down that they don't get any of that damn ticket money. They get almost nothing from it. But if you talk to anybody on the studio side, they swear that money's not coming. Where's that money going? If a movie is making $1 billion, who has that money now? And a year ago, I was pretty confident I could tell you because of the information that was available. It wasn't always very clear, but it was pretty easy to see who had what. But now everybody's claiming they're not the ones getting it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's really weird. This whole thing has just kind of, it's exposed a lot of nonsense.
Yeah. In no uncertain terms, it has exposed a lot of nonsense. And yeah, I think the big thing that they're talking about where they get to save money is we're seeing a lot of cancellations on shows that were already guaranteed using the force majeure wording in the contract. So, you know, if we don't have to make, if they're saying they're going from 600 scripted series in television to about 200 because of just everything that's left. I mean, that's a lot of money that you'd be saving if you're going from like losing 2/3 of your commitments monetarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
but then like the industry that they have built around feeding that industry is screwed. Because, like, I mean, think about the ways that, like, we have seen in the last 20 years film schools pop up. We've seen all sorts of writing classes available and books written and movies made about people in those situations, like, that are all useless and meaningless now, right?
I mean, I think the real issue, one of the things that we might have to look at is how necessary college is and how necessary like that industry actually is.
Well, right. And you know, we have talked very frequently on this show when we talk about the education stuff, which that has come up over the years. I've always been very open about the fact that I feel like we overpitch college to kids and then they come out in the world not needing it. But that is also fed by the fact that every job out there wants you to have this college degree, even though like half the stuff that you're doing, 90% of what you're doing in the job doesn't have anything to do with what you learned in college. Usually it's on the job learned or common sense, right? Like, I
mean, we're talking right now, we're recording the show as like that girl on TikTok blew up complaining about like the 9-to-5 environment. She's like, I have this 9-to-5 job. It's my first job. I'm out of college. College did not prepare me for this schedule.
Right.
College did not prepare me for having a 2-hour commute. And for the fact that like with that, it's a 12-hour day.
Right. That
I have no time to do anything else.
Right.
Besides this job. And a lot of people are like, oh, weak freaking Gen Z, huh? They don't know how to do anything. But like on some level, it's like, it should be looked at as an indictment of this system that we've just been like, no, this is right?
Yeah.
Working 9-to-5 is the only way to succeed.
Right.
And there was a time when you could. There was a time in this country where a 2-parent household, one person could go to work from 9-to-5, 40 hours a week, afford a house, afford to go on vacations, and there's definitely an income disparity that exists.
Right.
That is not enough anymore.
But I think in just to like before we turn this into straight up like Fox News, right? Like we were like if you look at it in terms of the entertainment industry and everything that's going on there, there's always been this weird feeling of like, well, this is something that you're so passionate about. So we're not going to play by those rules. We're going to exploit that in some way. Or it's not even that you won't have a 9-to-5. There's tons of 9-to-5 jobs to have in the arts. Right. But that idea that we can turn that into low-paying, no-paying gigs because people love doing
because
this.
people want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as this is, and this is just my own personal experience, so that is what I am sharing here. Most of the people I know who are able to work in the arts have some secondary form of income.
Well,
meaning
the
like
idea of the safety net.
Yeah, their parents are paying for their house, or like it's just this thing I see, or they come from money, so they're able to do a job that like does. I mean, how many jobs? I think about the job in Nantucket that I was offered, where I asked my advisor, and he very honestly said to me, "You right now, with everything that you know and everything you bring to the table, are worth $100 a day. So however many days they're expecting you to be out there, think of it as $100 a day and work from there." Now, granted, they offered me lodging, but when that lodging was a pull-out couch in somebody's basement, that went from like being a serious consideration to how much I'm getting paid each day to being like freaking negligible.
Yeah.
But then for like 18 days of work, they're like, "Yeah, we're going to give you $200. Like, no, I'm sorry. I can't afford. I have bills. I have things that like I need to do.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of insulting, and you can't find anybody on the island to take that money.
Yeah.
So like it's...
Right. So they just when they're doing this stuff with like these various strikes that we see going on. I mean, this is even in the auto workers stuff and the healthcare stuff that we see going on stuff too. Like I don't know if it's going on out here, but back home we have days where pharmacies are straight up just not open because they're strike days. Yeah. You know, they don't want to close up all the time because people need their medication, but at the same time they are putting their foot down and saying, you know, every Wednesday for the next 3 weeks we're just not going to have the pharmacy open. And that's like crazy. I have to like plan my day around that in a way that we didn't before, and which is good. They should be putting their foot down, but that idea that it's
the only thing that I hear when you say that though is like, what a perfect way to get someone on Amazon Pharmacy. Because that's a big thing that's been pushed out this year. Yeah. And if he can get everybody who can't go to a pharmacy on Wednesdays to sign up to his e-pharmacy online, Jeff Bezos, and I know that he's not really connected, but he's still become the face of Amazon. Right. Especially on this show, Daddy Bezos. Like, it is one of those situations where... Yeah,
but how do you do that for the entertainment industry? You know
exactly.
What I mean?
And it's, I don't know. And all the freaking interim agreements and all the things that we are seeing not only get made, but now marketed. It's just such a weird situation. You want to talk some local references, Sajan?
Yeah, let's talk local before
let's talk about what everybody that we did before we came to the studio. I'm gonna let you tell, because...
Oh, the most Rhode Island thing you could have possibly done.
Yeah, the most I gave Sejan, who born and bred in Rhode Island, right? You've lived in Utah for what, 5 years now? Yeah. So he's been away, and before that he was in Ohio for about 5 years, right?
10 years.
Yeah. So
it's been a while.
That's crazy to think.
Yeah, it's been a minute. No, so you picked me up today and you were like, we should probably get some food before we record. Like, right? We should make sure that we're fed and you know, we got our recording juice loaded and all that.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, you want to go to Twin Oaks? And I was like, I don't think I've been to Twin Oaks since I was like 15 and had a suit on, but sure, let's do this.
So here's a timeout moment, Zach Morris style. I am wearing the Shantae shirt. The Shantae shirt that has come to represent so much of the Say Report for me. And a pair of black shorts. They are Cotton Dockers, all Cotton Dockers shorts.
Fancy.
But that's what I'm wearing to go to Twin Oaks. And Sejan, he's a little bit more presentable. He's in stonewashed jeans, a beautiful cardigan. I'm jealous of the cardigan. And he has on like a yellow longshoreman hat. So, like, it's that we're really not dressed for the idea of Twin Oaks.
Right.
But Twin Oaks is a casual dining restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get sat eventually. Time back in to
Because notably, we did not get sat immediately.
we did not get sat immediately. I will say this: I usually do get sat immediately, but it was a new guy at the dais.
Yeah.
And let's talk about how ultimate power corrupted ultimately with that poor guy.
Yeah, that guy was off the rails. Like, this is so we're sitting next to the guy took our name. We sat down right next to him so that as soon as he called, we could go in. We noticed that a couple of other twos are being sat before us that weren't there before us, but whatever, we're waiting. And then a group comes in and they go, there's 9 of us. And the guy just whistles and goes, "Ooh, boy, walking in with 9. I don't know. Let's see what we like." That was brave.
Now, the funniest thing about that is Twin Oaks does not take reservations. You can book for like a party,
Right.
but like you couldn't call up and be like, "Yeah, we have 9 of us. We're going to be coming in around 2:00 today."
You don't get to say no reservations, but then also give people shit when they want to come and eat at your
Yeah,
restaurant.
exactly. So that was like moment 1, and then immediately following that was a party of 7,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "All right, but I just got to be honest with you, it's going to be like an hour wait."
Yeah, this guy so did not want people in the damn restaurant. It's like, all right, you can hang out if you want, but it's gonna be like an hour. Are you sure? And they're like, no.
And that worked, and those people, they left like immediately.
Yeah.
You could take us off the list.
Yeah.
And he seemed pretty pleased with himself that happened. So it's not, I don't know if it's not that he didn't want people in the restaurant, but he specifically didn't want big parties.
Yeah.
Like,
But we got sat, and
we
had a lovely dinner by the lake, right?
by the lake. It's raining, but it's still beautiful scenery, right?
Yeah.
In this relic from the past, 6 dining room, 4 bar restaurant.
Yeah.
There was not an empty table.
No.
Like, as much as I felt kind of bad that we didn't get sat right away, it's like, no, but there's a reason why we didn't get sat right away.
The place was hopping. No, it was crazy. Well, that was the other thing is we were thinking Sunday, the Pats are on. We'll get in there. No.
No, still, it wasn't an hour, but we did, get in and get sat. And it was a fun little experience because, like, living in Rhode Island, I remember I was like 9 years old when my parents had this revelation that, like, oh, Twin Oaks doesn't just have to be for special occasions.
See, and that's the thing is Twin Oaks was always special occasions for my family.
Yeah.
We never had that moment. Like, I'm sure that my parents have had dates there, but and those are special occasions in their own way, right? Like,
exactly.
Like, so I had only ever gone to Twin Oaks if it was a retirement party, somebody's birthday, or a baby shower or something like that. Like, so when you were like, "Let's go to Twin Oaks," you might as well have been saying to me like, "Let's go to prom." I was like, "Okay, let's try this." And we Now, the other thing about Twin Oaks is that it is this huge, gorgeous restaurant that has all of this old stone and wood paneling and all this blah, 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 right on the side of the lake, candlelit dinner, all of this. It's also in the middle of a goddamn neighborhood. It's not in a business area. You have to drive, like, around people's houses and park around people's houses in order to get to it. So, like, it's the weirdest experience and also the most New England thing I think I could do.
Yeah. And I wanted to give him that New England experience.
Yeah.
I was thinking another local reference, like maybe we go to Cello's. But if I go to Cello's and the Pats are on, the bar is probably going to be slammed.
And loud.
And, like, I kind of wanted to talk to CJ. We got to have a nice sort of intimate My Dinner with CJ experience at the Twin Oaks.
Yeah.
And I got the marinated ribeye with the 3 stuffed shrimp that my father is like, if you go, you got to try it. And it was delicious. I cannot.
You tried to talk me into a dinosaur cut steak.
I did try to cut you into a dinosaur cut of prime rib, which I think is 32 ounces of prime ribs.
Insane. That is.
Well, it reminds me of, there used to be a place called Archie's in Pawtucket, and they were famous for their 64-ounce prime rib.
What?
And I got it one time. And it's like one of those things where, like, you order it one time. And I was eating prime rib for 3 weeks. Like, I got through a healthy amount of it at the restaurant, but then, like, at home, it'd be like, oh, I kind of want a snack. And my mom's like, oh, good, you got prime rib left. Because I was like 13 at the time.
And you ordered a 64-ounce steak?
Yeah.
And your parents were going to make sure you ate every freaking bite of it.
I ate every ounce of those 64 ounces.
Oh, man.
It was a good experience, though. And I miss it. And Archie's has closed down. But, like, the dinosaur cut. And the beautiful thing with Twin Oaks is like, oh, I'll have the ladies cut.
Yeah.
I'll have the gentleman's cut. Raw dinosaur cut for me. Like,
yeah, their system is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
Joey Fatone's pictures on the wall, which really sort of blew Sejan's mind.
well, it really threw me for a loop because I hit a point where I was like, I don't know if Joey Fatone actually ever came here. Just because his picture's on the wall, it doesn't even say this is a picture of Joey Fatone who once came here. It's just a picture of Joey Fatone on the wall. That's
It's not
it.
signed, right?
No, well, so there's a couple of them over there that are, but I don't know if his was. I don't know. I tried to clock a closer look of it as I went to the restroom because that's the other thing. Is it's just hanging up next to the bathroom, which is like great. And there's like a Matt Dillon one that's signed, but but Joey Fatone, I don't think it was. This is how weird I felt about it. I didn't even want to like stop to take it in. I was just trying to like out of the corner of my eye see what I could see from it. I don't know. I was afraid he was gonna follow me into the bathroom or something. But like, there's
Imagine if Joey Fatone stepped out of the photo and followed you into the restroom.
yeah.
I think it'd be worth it. I think I'd be okay with it.
Oddly, it sounds like it would just be an NSYNC music video from 20 years ago.
I followed you into the bathroom at the Twin Oaks. Bow, bow, bueno, bueno, bueno.
Yeah, I don't know, but man, that place, like, that's the other thing is it is so stuck in a time period. And, like, it is 90 years old. It is a 90-year-old
this
restaurant.
is their 90th year.
And it doesn't look like it's ever aged past that 90 days. Like, yeah.
Other than the fact that they have added dining rooms, but as if they asked the child to decide, where do you want the next dining room to go? On the roof?
Yeah.
Okay, how are we going to get up there? Fireman pole?
Yeah, everybody climb up the tree. Yeah. Oh man.
But I'm glad that I gave you that type of experience.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Because it was my parents being like, we don't need to come here for only special occasions. It was only ever the special occasion thing because we'd be visiting my grandparents when we still lived in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're like, it's not a special event, it can just be an anytime thing. It kind of became an anytime thing.
Nice.
Like every Saturday we would go and I'd get a cream soda and it was a beautiful time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else that you want to talk about this week?
No.
There's one last thing to discuss.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult to talk about. I think that's why we've been avoiding it for so long.
Yeah, well, and part of it is that there's no way to really talk about it without diving into some stuff. But
yeah, Matthew Perry passed away.
Yeah, it's a fucking bummer. As anybody that's ever listened to this show knows, we've had many a moment where we have talked about the greatness of Matthew Perry in various projects. Yeah,
it's one of those things where, I mean, Will is our third musketeer. Well, our third Aramis, like or Athos. I don't know. We determine which musketeers we are each time, right? Alexander Dumas, read the book. It's a good book. It's just a long book too. Like you won't have to think of what am I going to read for like a couple of months. You read the 1,000 pages of the Three Musketeers. But Henny's there, and as much as Siege and Will and I are together because of like who we are and just compatibility of personality, one of those actors who pulled the three of us together was Matthew Perry.
Right.
Maybe we should start calling ourselves the Three Chandlers. I don't know. And he's someone that means a lot to both Siege and I. I was thinking this morning, I had 2 of his films on my top 9 at Blockbuster. and you can send us your guesses as to what those are. We'll give our contact information at the end, but
in the dark comedy that he is pretty well known for. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
But there's a moment where they go to a jazz club up in and it's filmed up in Montreal. I don't think the movie actually that might be. It might even be part of the movie that they go to Montreal.
Well, it's set in Canada. The film we're talking about is set in Canada.
Right, but I think there's a reason why they try to get out of town and they go into the city.
Yeah.
And then when they're in the city, they go to a B.B. King jazz club. And when me and my family were up there, probably 3 years after that movie had come out, we walked by and I noticed that I was like, because it's got a very distinct, smaller, rounded door and all of this that has like funky handles and stuff. And I was like, holy shit, that's the club. Now, movies are weird. Just because they show the outside of it and then you go inside doesn't mean it's the same location. But I was like, that's the club they were in. We got to go there. So my parents took 13-year-old, 14-year-old me. I couldn't have been much more than that. And they were just like, okay, because he liked this one shot in this movie, we're going to go into this jazz club now in Montreal. And it was awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I think that he played a lot of characters that spoke to me in terms of like the dark cynicism that he presented and the
Yeah.
sarcasm, and I'm like sartorial, like he
Yeah.
was very like.
I mean, for good or for ill, like there's a
Yeah.
lot to be said about the kind of comedy that he always found himself in now, like in retrospect. But like he shaped so much about what people considered, like to be the biting comedy of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
We've talked about this so much about how things got kind of dark by the end of the 2000s, but it started with this kind of sardonic, sarcastic characters that you had that he was pretty big on playing, to the point where he ends up doing shows and movies later in his career reflecting on being kind of the only guy in the room with that attitude anymore, and how the world has
Has
longer
moved past
that.
it since- Yeah, and I guess I think he's kind of the father of snark in a lot of ways, and snark is unfortunately sort of a currency that we have in abundance in the modern world. I mean, I guess for the last thing to talk about, like R.I.P. Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
Thank you for the laughs. Thank you for all of the thoughts, and you'll be missed.
Yeah.
Especially here at the Say Report.
Yeah, and
So-
just like, and it sucks because it was just out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, it's
It
not
was-
like, it's just a bummer. But there's plenty of stuff for us to take in to remember him, and
Yeah.
that's another thing to add to the list for things
Yeah,
for us to talk about.
we're going to have a Matthew Perry episode sometime.
Yeah.
I'm adding it to the notes file right now.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else? Or, I mean, I think that it's kind of a bummer to go out on, but if we hadn't talked about him, it would have felt
There's a bag of
worse.
vanilla M&Ms here that I'm waiting to try.
All right. Yeah, let's pop open these vanilla M&Ms and then we'll send it over to Will.
Ooh,
Oh, listen to that Foley work. All right. So these are the, toasty vanilla M&Ms featuring the green M&M on the cover.
I feel like she's become the spokesperson for all of the fuck
flavored
it. Like,
kind of
let's
ones.
try 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try
All right,
'em.
so CJ's popping his in his mouth first. Oh, listen to that Foley. That's real nice.
That's not the worst weird M&M
Okay,
I've
I'm
had.
going to throw it in mine now.
That is actually not the worst weird M&M.
Oh, my goodness. It's toasty and it's vanilla. You know what this would pair nice with? The Oak and Vanilla Porter from Sam Adams. Not a sponsor.
Yeah, right.
So if you're out there in M&M world, right?
Are you going to just keep eating? Should I finish things? Or are you going
No, I wanted to put another one in, but no. If you're out there in M&M world, toasty vanilla M&Ms get the Say Report seal of approval.
Yeah.
Go give them a shot. Also, I drank some Liquid Deaths during the show.
Nice.
The Severed Lime and the Bury It Alive. I've never tried any flavored Liquid Death, only the like regular kind of still one. I enjoyed both of these. I don't think they're worth the cost.
No.
They're
Look,
very
I think-
expensive.
Well,
but
so I've told you before, Liquid Death is huge out in Utah because you get a lot of non-drinkers, but they like that they can do the whole, the cans look like beer cans bit has sold really well out there. Their biggest problem is price, which where I live is not a big issue for a lot of people around me.
Right.
Like the area that I happen to live in the world is pretty well off, and so like price doesn't seem to be an issue here. I have noticed more and more people who are like, man, they're fine, but they're just expensive, and it's something that I had not had, privilege
why
of
would you
showing,
experience
but, like,
it? Yeah, no,
right,
it's
like
fine, yeah.
it's just not something that I had considered.
But, I mean, I can buy the Target brand of sparkling water, and it's like $3 for 8 of them.
Yeah, right.
And it's like $7 for a case of Liquid Death, and it's
Mhm.
like the Target ones have crazy flavors. Like they try to be like La Croix,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like cherry cola. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then also it's cheaper, and like for the price of 2 Liquid Deaths, I can get 16 cans.
There
It's just-
is a I think it is Costco because I think it's like their Dr. K,
oh my goodness.
but it is a sparkling water flavored like Dr. K.
Oh my
Hey,
goodness.
like, that is the weirdest one that I think I've ever had that I still enjoy.
It's so weird that I think we got to wrap this up. All right. So thank you so much for joining us for this recording of the Say Report, the first one that's been done face to face between CJ and I. It's weird. I think that if we continue to hang out the rest of the day, we're probably not going to make eye contact. It just feels like that. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns about anything that we discussed during this week's episode, the best way to get in touch with us is through email to thesayreport@gmail.com. We'd actually love to hear from you. A lot of people listen to our very spectral episode where I told some spooky stories. We're there at thesayreport.com, thesayreport@gmail.com. Let us know your feelings. And again, if it's specifically for Sejan or for myself, just make sure you put the name in the subject line so it gets filtered out to the right folder. With that, thanks for joining us. Hope you have a very happy Halloween. And William, please bring us home. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.